As the anti-war movement continues to lose ground in the West due to widespread public support for the illegal wars of the Obama administration, an innovative new approach emerges from Southeast Asia: the creation of student-run organizations designed to energize youth around the concept of criminalizing war. This is the GRTV Backgrounder on Global Research TV. They say that big ideas start from humble beginnings, and in the pantheon of ideas, perhaps there is none bigger than the quest to criminalize war. The concept itself is difficult for many to process at first. It does not mean to uphold some mere code of war conduct, making certain atrocities committed during times of war punishable as war crimes, as in the Geneva Convention. Instead, the concept of criminalizing war seeks to make warfare itself a crime, punishable as an offense no matter when or how it is waged or under what pretext. For many in the anti-war movement in the Western world, completely demoralized by the utter abandonment of that movement by many on the pro-war left who are unwilling or unable to criticize Obama's avid pro-war policies, the idea of criminalizing war will seem a pipe dream, no more realistic than the idea of stopping all violence in the world or making everyone a millionaire. This is precisely the problem. The longtime activists and campaigners have become so disillusioned that they no longer even try to implement the changes that they would like to see take place in the world. The weight of their experiences has taught them to be grateful for small advances here and there, and to expect that big changes can never happen. In stark contrast to the jaded views of older generations stands the idealism of youth, an idealism that the older generation, predictably enough, tends to dissuade by urging those youth to grow up and face reality. However, late last year, the first seeds of a new anti-war movement were planted in Malaysia, a movement that seeks to shape the world in the image of that ideal society, not by dissuading youthful idealism, but by fostering it. The concept was unveiled at the International Conference on War-Affected Children, which took place at the Putra World Trade Center on November 22nd last year. Attended by dignitaries including former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad and current PM Najib Razak, the event sought to draw attention to the plight of children in war-torn countries around the world.
It is incumbent on us, the governing generation, to make the changes that the children here today deserve, to show through our actions that to be a broker for peace is infinitely greater than a driver of conflict.
The event also saw the launch of a new initiative by the Kuala Lumpur Foundation to Criminalize War. Called Criminalize War Clubs, the aim is to encourage the development of independent, student-run organizations around the idea of criminalizing war. The organization's charter was formally signed by the Prime Minister and other dignitaries, and the first two chapters of what is planned to be a global phenomenon were started with a reading of the charter.
Recalling that between 1986 and 1996, armed conflict has killed 2 million children, injured 6 million, traumatized 10 million, and left over 1 million orphaned.
The charter calls for wars of aggression to be criminalized, for states and governments to protect children in armed conflicts, and for banning the participation of children in war. In an exclusive interview with Global Research TV, former Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad talked about the clubs and what they hope to achieve.
It just struck us that on the one hand, we consider a person who kills another person as having committed a serious crime, which may merit the most serious punishment. Yet, when we kill 100,000 people or 1 million people, that is not a crime. That is considered as glorious. And the criminal actually is honored, given medals, have his statue put up and things like that. It seems very odd. How can you say that killing one person is a crime, killing 1 million person is not? So that is why we feel that we should bring to the attention of the world that this is incompatible with civilization, modern civilization. And of course, on the other hand, we know that war is a terrible thing. It brutalizes people. In war, people do things which they would never do in peace. And because war is always won by the powerful, it is a grossly unfair way of settling disputes between nations. So with all these things in our minds, we decided that we should regard war as we regard murder, that it mass murder, and we should punish those who commit such mass murder. And so came the idea of criminalizing war.
The clubs are just one program spearheaded by the Kuala Lumpur Foundation to Criminalize War, the non-governmental organization founded by Mahathir Mohamad in 2007. Its other initiatives include the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Commission, comprised of scholars, lawyers, and high-ranking officials from around the world, and the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, which successfully prosecuted George Bush, Dick Cheney, and others last year for their participation in war crimes in the War on Terror. Last November, I talked to G.S. Kumar, the editor of Criminalize War, about Mahathir Mohamad's vision and the promise that initiatives like the Criminalize War Clubs offer.
Okay, it's actually called the Criminalize War Clubs Malaysian chapter, because it's the first one here, and our hope, long-term hope, is that it will spread to other neighboring countries. Now, again, I go back to what Tun had said. When he said, the children, our future electorate, they will have the power to elect members of parliament, like we have here, and I guess like what you have in Canada, who are going to go up and say, I am going to be against war. Vote me in and I will form a caucus or whatever and get the constitution changed. We need a 2/3 majority for that. But if in time more such people, like-minded people get elected, we can have a clause in our constitution that says that Malaysia will not go to war. However, we would have a policing force to keep law and order. No weapons of mass destruction, no offensive designs on anybody. So that is the central point of this whole club. Now, what we're trying to do, and this again is an evolution that is going to take a lot of time. It is going to need a lot of heads, a lot of manpower, woman power, whatever, to try and put this together, that the children understand the perils of war, that it is children who suffer the most.
There is, of course, no guarantee that initiatives like these will pay off in the future. Whether or not human civilization will ever be able to envision a way to resolve their differences without recourse to war is a question that has yet to be definitively answered. But if we do not continue to pose that question, then surely no answer will be possible. And given the stakes of the conflicts raging across the globe today, and the possibility of nuclear war, or war waged with even more advanced technologies, the need to answer this question has never been greater. To be sure, there is a vast chasm between the world we currently live in and the one in which war itself is outlawed. No one is pretending otherwise. But it is clear at this point that if that ideal is ever to be realized, it will not be presided over by the current generation of disillusioned cynics in the burnt-out wreckage of today's demoralized anti-war movement, but by a generation yet untouched by that disillusionment. And if it is indeed true that big ideas have humble beginnings, then it would be harder to think of a bigger idea or a more humble beginning. For more on this story and other breaking news and current events, please go to globalresearch.ca. For more research and analysis by James Corbett, please go to corbettreport.com.